Hello and welcome
to Sort of the Story.
I'm Janey.
And I'm Max.
And I'm Andi.
And I'm Feliz.
And this is Sort of the Story. With special guests, the You Two Scare Me podcast, Andi and Feliz. Hi, guys.
Hey.
So we met Andi and Feliz when we were on our wonderful podcast convention journey trying to be professional podcasters. And they were some of the only people that we were like, we love you. Let's hang out. Some of the first people that we said that.
Yeah. We had some of that like instant like, hey, you guys seem kind of like cool and weird like us.
Yeah, we were like, I think there are people.
Yeah, just the vibes from the back row of one particular session. We were like, yeah, they're us.
Yeah.
Good thing you're sitting next to us. So, guys, tell us a little bit about yourself. Can you tell our listeners about your podcast?
Yeah, so we are two besties and we live in Key West. We started our podcast journey just under a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things that we had been together a decade ago talking about, we should do a podcast, blah, blah, blah. I moved away, lots of tears, moved back, and immediately we're like, okay, let's do this now. Yeah. And so we both really love spooky things. Feliz is a little more skeptical than I am. I'm like, yes, ghost, alien, cryptid, got it. And she's like,
It's growing on me.
That's a great dynamic. It's the Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
On our podcast, though, we usually have a research portion. So each episode, one of us covers a topic. And then the second part of our podcast is called Somebody Told Me. And it's a story that someone has sent in or shared with us.
Yeah. So
amazing.
Personal spooky ghost stories or any kind of stories, really. We've heard it all.
Anything weird.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten a story that was so scary it gave you nightmares?
I don't think, for me personally, not nightmares, but more like, I'm like, what is that shadow in the corner of my room? Like flashlight. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's just a hat.
Yeah.
Just a little paranoia.
Yeah. Sometimes the stories that people send are really personal or they're kind of sad or, it's pretty moving. It's been it's cool. It's so nice when people are willing to share those stories with us, we treasure that.
That's an incredible way to connect with your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So we are going to be asking them way more questions, don't worry, as we go. But this is a regular episode of Sort of the Story. Max and I have prepared some spooky stories for you guys today.
Ooh. Yes, we can't wait.
And I believe that Max and I had the same thoughts. This episode is coming out, I think, the day after St. Patrick's Day. So we both, I believe, have also spooky Irish-based stories.
Ooh, that's so exciting. We're dedicating all of March to spooky stories. So this is perfect. It's kismet.
Amazing. All right. So, Max, how about we do a Patreon plug at the very end of this podcast episode? And we just jump into it. Yeah?
Yeah. Guys, listen till the end for a Patreon plug. Won't that be fun?
Guys, it's going to be so good. You're going to love our Patreon plug. Andi and Feliz, just so you guys know, there's a Patreon tier where you can pay us $4, get Discord access, and become our girlfriends. So, I don't know.
Awesome.
All right.
We will be extending the invitation to you guys for free if you would like to become our girlfriends.
Oh my goodness.
Wait until after. Okay. See if we scare you enough.
Wow. These perks are really adding up.
Oh my God. All right. Well, with that, Max, it is episode 176, which means that you go first.
I go first.
Let's take the briefest of breaks, like 1 second, guys. Don't be scared. We're going to be back. And then Max will come back and tell us all a spooky little story.
Alrighty.
Okay. See you soon. Bye.
Okay, guys. Today I have a story for you. And this is the spookiest Irish story I could find. It's a ghost story. And it's the story of the Dullahan.
Ooh, okay.
Are you guys like at all aware of like folklore around, creatures, cryptids? Yeah. Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Dullahan?
I just did a little bit of research on the Dullahan, so I'm so excited to hear. Yeah.
Amazing. And Max, I have to tell you, the only thing I know about the Dullahan is from that Fairies and Leprechauns Romeo and Juliet movie. It's called like The Magical Legend of the Fairies and Leprechauns or something.
Yeah, something
It
like
has
that.
Randy Quaid. It has, I think, Kieran Culkin is in it when he's little. It's like a whole big thing. You guys should watch it. It's
Oh.
really good.
Okay.
Whoopi Goldberg's in it
Watch list.
randomly.
Oh yeah, I always forget she's in that.
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg plays a big old crow. It's really good, I
Oh.
promise.
Probably
like a
won
cinematic
Golden
masterpiece.
Globe for that one.
Phenomenal. Watch party soon, guys. All right, so I don't know much about it. I'm excited, Max.
Yes. So I've heard a lot of stories about the Dullahan. The Dullahan is a figure in Irish mythology. Dullahan literally means like the dark or sullen man. And he is a headless horseman. So if you've heard this story of Sleepy Hollow or anything like that, that story comes from the original Irish myth of the Dullahan in a lot of ways. I actually, in my sources for this episode, I linked to an analysis of like the history of headless horsemen and where it actually comes from. The headless horseman starts off as this thing of the Dullahan, but then if you go back further, it's actually the English myth, the Arthurian legend of the Green Knight, where the Green Knight says that whatever blow you strike upon him, he will strike upon you a year later. Gawain cuts off the Green Knight's head, and then the Green Knight is like, now I'm going to cut off your head. And so that's kind of like also a headless horseman story. But then if you go even further back, there's another Irish story that has that same theme, which I think Janey has actually told other parts of that story on the podcast in the past. It's the story of Crom Cullen or something. I can't remember his name.
Oh, the Cuchulainn. Yeah.
Yeah, the bull.
Yes, Cuchulainn and the brown bull of Cooley.
Yes, the brown bull of Cooley. Yeah, there's all these legends around this idea of the headless horseman, but the Dullahan is definitely the scariest iteration of the headless horseman. He is a figure in Irish mythology that acts as a harbinger of death. So he rides around the Irish countryside and he specifically tracks down people who are slated for death. And he cannot speak except for the name of the person who he is going to kill. It's unclear where, yeah. In Irish lore, there's like the banshee who is like more so just is like something is going to happen to you, something bad is going to happen,
like unhelpful wailing.
Yes, exactly. Whereas the Dullahan is much more like something bad is going to happen to you and it's going to be me. I'm going to happen to you.
He actually does it. Okay. He's not just the usher.
Yes, exactly. So he rides around Ireland and he says the name of the person who he's there to like fetch for death. He is a headless horseman. Sometimes he's depicted as being in a horse-drawn carriage that is drawn by 6 black horses. But in any case, he's always headless. Usually he's carrying his own head, and it's really weird, but every single description of him carrying his head says that his head is like moldy cheese. Ew. Which is really gross. For some reason, they're like specifically, hang on, I have a description here.
They're like, let's make this as gross as possible.
Right? Yeah, just for
we
fun.
want you to be able to smell this story.
Yes.
Got it.
This is from T. Crofton Croker's Irish Fairy Tales. Such a head no mortal ever saw before. It looked like a large cream cheese hung round with black puddings, which are like blood puddings. No speck of color enlivened the ashy paleness of the depressed features. The skin lay stretched over the unearthly surface almost like the parchment head of a drum. 2 fiery eyes of prodigious circumference with strange and irregular motion flashed like meteors. So he's got this big, like fleshy, gross, moldy cheese head. That's all like bloody and like raggedy, and he's got these huge big old bulbous eyes that are like on fire. And from this point on, I just want you guys to picture Ghost Rider from the classic
that's exactly
film
what
Ghost
I
Rider
pictured
2
when you
Spirit of
were
Vengeance.
saying
Yes.
that. Yeah.
We're all picturing Nick Cage, right?
Yeah.
Moldy cheese Nicolas Cage.
Moldy cheese Nick.
Oh,
Moldy cheese Nick. I'm sure he would like that.
Cheesy.
You should tag him in this episode.
We've actually already done a whole episode on everything that Nicolas Cage owns, and if he ever hears it, then he'll probably come and hunt us down because I'm very
Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Nobody tag him.
Yeah, this is funny. As I was doing all the research into the Dullahan, I realized that this is kind of like the closing of a full circle for a lot of things in our podcast, where we've done the story of Sleepy Hollow, we've done the story of the Bull of Cooley, we've done the Gawain and the Green Knight, but we've also done our off-topic episode on Nicolas Cage. And so we really just built up to the Dullahan this whole time.
We built this episode brick by brick.
I love that.
Yes.
We're happy you're here.
So he rides around Ireland collecting souls. He has his head under one arm, and in his other hand, he carries around a human spine that he uses as a whip.
Oh,
yes.
It seems like it would be fragile.
So creative.
Yeah.
Everyone's so creative.
Like, everyone's so creative.
Great job using your resources.
Thank you.
Yes.
Waste not.
And if he catches you looking for him, so if you're like in your house and you hear him riding by and you look out the window or anything, he will take his spine whip and whip you in the eyes and blind you.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yep.
Now blindness is a threat.
Oh.
Yes. There are also stories of him having, especially when he's in his carriage, if you approach the carriage, he'll open the door of the carriage and then he'll just throw a bowl of blood in your face.
Fucking pranked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Unhygienic above all else.
Blood. It was a female cryptid who carried a bowl of blood.
Was it Gryla?
Maybe
Gryla carries a bowl of blood.
I think so. Was it? It was one of the Christmas ones, or like
so.
the holiday ones.
Yeah.
When a girl does it, I think it's cool, actually. I found out about myself.
Way
today.
better. When a guy does it, gross as usual, right?
Yeah. Come on, you sullen, sulky guy. We all know your type. Stop throwing your blood and get over it.
Oh my gosh.
But Gryla, good for you, girl. More power to you.
Yeah. Supporting women's rights and wrongs.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different stories about like the origin of the Dullahan and where it comes from, but one of the predominant theories is that in the 17th century BC, there was a king named King Tigernmus, who was one of the kings of Northern Ireland in that area, who very wholeheartedly worshipped a pagan god named Crom Duv, who is the king of worms. He would sacrifice people by beheading them and sending their souls to Crom Duv. So that's kind of where like the headlessness comes from.
Okay.
Crom Duv is god of bountiful harvest. So in return, they would have, you know, a really great harvest that year for all of
worms.
the heads. Yeah, exactly. Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
So this carried on for some time. It started under King Tigernmus and then continued for some centuries after. It definitely was ended, though, by the 6th century CE, when Christian missionaries, and specifically like St. Patrick and everything, came to Ireland and rooted out the majority of ongoing pagan practices or replaced them with Christian practices. The story says that Crom Duv did not like that he was no longer receiving any of these sacrifices of headless bodies.
Yeah.
So he decided to take matters into his own hands, and he became the Headless Horseman.
Oh.
All right.
So that's the story.
Yeah.
We've got goals.
Yeah.
You know what? Good for you, King.
The Dullahan is really sort of centralized to Northern Ireland and that area, specifically County Sligo and County Down in Ireland. If you encounter the Dullahan, the only thing that will stop him is pure gold. So you always want to carry like a gold piece or a gold pin that you can drop on the ground, and then he will stop. He won't be able to go any further than that on the road. But that'll only stop him. Yeah, that'll only stop him if you're not the one he's after. So if
nothing
he
stops him.
Yes. Yeah, if you're his target, then you're just fucked.
Wait, so you could be like just walking by and accidentally get caught in the crossfire unless you like give him something? Oh, that's
no, he doesn't.
BS.
He doesn't take the gold. He's just scared of it.
Yeah, all right.
Like his kryptonite.
Yeah, dude, what's your deal?
He's got a lot of stuff going on.
I was just walking here with my gold coins.
Yeah.
And you might think, you know, well, surely I would just run to my house and close the door and he wouldn't be able to get in because there aren't any monsters that can open doors. But that's not true. The Dullahan can open gates and doors regardless of whether they are locked or closed. Every portal sways open for him.
Oh.
And I've been using the term horseman and him a lot. And a lot of the stories about the Dullahan are stories about like a male headless horseman. But I have a short little story that I'm going to tell you guys that is actually about a female Dullahan. So, Janey, you're welcome.
All right.
Yay! Go off, queen! Whatever she's going to do, I agree.
You're going to agree even more.
Okay,
she's
good.
so right. So this is The Good Woman, which is a story that was recorded by T. Crofton Croker in his Irish Fairy Tales. This is actually in South Ireland, so I don't know whether the like gender difference in Dullahans is like north versus south or anything, but just happens to be in Southern Ireland. There was a man named Larry Dodd, and he had a wife named Nancy, and the two of them rented a cabin on land at the foot of the Galtee Mountains. One day he goes out to the market and he purchases a nag, a female horse, and he gets a really good deal on it. And it's such a good deal that he's like, wow, why doesn't everyone just buy a horse? It's like, all right, not everyone can just buy a horse.
Have they tried being rich?
Yeah, you just gotta pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I'd like to try that.
Yeah. I'll try it tomorrow.
So he goes to the market and he purchases this wall-eyed nag, so kind of like a cross-eyed horse a little bit. So not a great horse, but like a pretty good one for the price of
used.
7 IOUs. Yes.
Okay.
7 IOUs.
Yes.
Wow.
So of course he thinks that horses are cheap because he's buying it on credit. But he's riding back home with this horse and he sees a woman in a long dark cloak and she's just walking down the road, and it's kind of rainy, it's kind of cold and gross outside, it's getting dark. So he pulls up next to her and he's like, you know, the good thing to do is to offer her a ride. So he pulls up next to her and he says, I'm happy to like have you ride this horse with me as far as you're going, as long as we're going in the same direction. So she says nothing, but she jumps up on the horse with him. They ride on for a little while and he's just like thinking, he can't really see her face. So he can't really tell if she's like young or old or pretty or not pretty because her face is all shadowed in this hood. But he continues riding for a long time. And eventually they get to a rockier part of the road and he notices that one of the horse's horseshoes is loose. So he's like, oh, I've got a flat tire. Gotta stop and, you know, nail this horse's hoof back into horseshoe back into place. And so he gets off the horse and immediately this woman also gets off the horse and he's like, oh, you don't have to do that. I can take care of it. And then she starts walking away. And he's like, well, hang on. Didn't even say thank you or anything like that. And so he starts following her. And this is the point at which the story turns.
Oh, no.
Because what the fuck? Don't follow her.
Yeah.
She's allowed to leave.
Yeah. So then he pursues her into this field and he's like, hey, come back here. Like, you owe me a kiss, which has never been mentioned.
Ew.
What?
Yeah. Very
Gross.
upsetting. Yeah.
He never even saw her face.
Yeah.
No. Right?
Taking a chance on that
Grandma.
one.
It could be his grandma. God.
Man, it could be. And I hope she yells at him.
Yes. So he's like, come back here and give me a kiss. And she's like, no, absolutely not. She doesn't say that. She just continues on silently. And so he runs to catch up with her. And eventually they get to this church and she starts like running to get away from him. And they run around the church like Looney Tunes style a couple of times. And she's trying to get away from him. He's trying to catch up with her.
That makes it seem less sinister than it is.
Yes. And eventually he's like tired out. So he's like, I'm just going to stop here and then I'll go in the opposite direction and I'll catch her as she's coming around the church next time. And he does so. But as he runs into her and her cloak falls back and he sees that she does not have a head.
Yeah. That's what you get.
That's what you fucking get.
Yes.
Yikes.
So yeah.
She wasn't equipped for the kiss.
No.
Yeah, she can't even give him one.
No.
She would.
By the way,
totally would.
I have said this for like 20 plus years that if I could have any superpower, it would be the ability to remove my own head at will, because I do think it'd be very helpful. But this girl is giving me yet another reason why this would be a helpful superpower to have.
There you go.
Absolutely.
The usefulness is endless.
That's a new one. I don't think I've ever heard that one before.
I'm very passionate about wanting to be able to remove my own head at will.
There you go.
Could you tell us some more situations in which you would remove your head?
Yes, if I was pulled
I'm
over by
curious.
a cop, if I was mugged while walking down an alleyway, if I was at a child's birthday party, if my nephews were acting up. Max, I could keep going. And now this one, if some strange man is chasing me.
Oh my gosh.
Just drop your head off.
You'll need that skill.
Yeah.
It's always useful. If I don't want to be at a party anymore, done. That's different than the child's birthday party because I think I'd do that for entertainment purposes.
So he runs into her, realizes that she doesn't have a head. He is so scared that he completely passes out. When he comes to, he realizes that he's fallen over sort of a low window and into the church. Inside of the church, there is a wheel of torture.
What kind of church
so
is
it's
this?
a Catholic church. Got it.
Right.
We had that at our churches growing up.
Oh, okay.
Common.
You guys, you take the Eucharist, you peace be with you, wheel of torture, and then you go home.
Okay.
Wheel of torture. So the wheel of torture is just this huge, like, multi-spoked wheel, and on the end of each of the spokes is a head of one of the noblemen of the country, and then there are just a bunch of headless bodies sitting around the wheel and, like, spinning it, and sometimes they'll, like, take a head off and, like, toss it back and forth to each other, and they're just kind of having a good time playing with heads.
All right.
Yeah,
So he wakes up, he realizes that he's in the company of all of these Dullahans, right? These, like, headless individuals who are all just kind of playing head games, literally.
I see what you did there.
And they realize that he's awake and they offer him a drink. And he's like, oh, sure, absolutely. Because he's an idiot.
No,
that's the natural
because we're in
response, right?
Ireland.
So they offer him a drink. He tries the drink and he's in the middle of saying, wow, that's a good drink, when he passes out very suddenly. Because obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
He comes to in the morning, and first thing he does is he checks his neck to make sure that his head is still on.
Yeah.
And it still is.
Good.
So
Okay.
he's very happy about that. And then he checks to make sure that, like, all of his clothes are on and everything, and that he doesn't have any penises drawn on his face.
If there's one thing a Dullahan does, it's prank you.
Yeah.
Classic pranksters.
Yeah.
But he goes outside and he realizes that his horse is nowhere to be seen because he left the horse alone. But he's like, those Dullahans stole my horse.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
No, he chased that woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude. You left your, like, used Nissan Sentra on the side of the road in a rainstorm with the keys still in.
Mm-hmm.
In neutral. Just like
In neutral.
So he's like, those Dullahans stole my horse. They are, like, the worst horse thieves in the entire country. I'll never forgive them. So he has to walk all the way back home, and he gets back home and his wife is furious with him because he's been out all night, and also he's coming home without the horse that he was supposed to have, and he's like, oh, but you don't understand. There was this woman and it's her fault.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
No. Mm-mm.
And immediately his wife is like, in no world is this the fault of some random woman and not you being an idiot.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
And he's been an idiot the whole time. And she knows that.
Yeah, she knows.
Yes, of course.
There's no way this is the first time he's been an idiot.
No.
Right.
So that's the end of the story of The Good Woman by T. Crofton Croker.
Why do you think it's called The Good Woman?
I don't know. She does seem good and fine.
Well, she didn't cut his head off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
That
woke
was
up
nice of her,
alive.
Yeah.
That's true. And I feel like that's
know?
like a greater, she's treated him better than he was planning to treat her, which was she just kind of left him
Right.
alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he just fell into the, like, dude party, and she was like, check you later.
Good luck.
Anyway, this is your stop.
Yeah.
suppose.
I'll take this horse. Thanks.
Do we think she actually took the horse?
I hope she did.
Do you think that was her
Yeah.
plan? Was her plan to steal the horse?
No, but also if a guy
no.
starts chasing me around and demanding a kiss, yeah, I'm going to take his horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she
I
was
am owed.
supposed to usher him into death, and then she was like, oh my gosh, he's so annoying. I can't.
She,
I don't
she
want
didn't him hanging around
I would
forever.
have to walk him to death. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Maybe. Interesting. I kind of wish
Ooh, good
she had
story.
been worse. I wish it wasn't such a good woman.
Yeah. It was funny because like all of the other stories that I could find of the Dullahan were stories of like, oh, someone sees a Dullahan and then someone dies. And that's, not a super fun story. But
so Max and I were talking about this before. We have a lot of books of Irish ghost stories because the Irish, they love a good ghost story and a lot of really good. I mean, you guys for sure know this, right? Like so many good ghost stories come from Ireland. But a lot of the folk tales that we get are like firsthand accounts, and they're very like short. They're very much like, I saw the ghost once. It was bad.
It's a somebody told me from centuries ago.
It's a somebody told me. Yeah. So like for the purposes of our podcast, it's not always easy to find like a really solid. We have found really great Irish ghost stories before. We love a good creature. I love a female Dullahan.
Do you tell it?
Yeah. What about Banshee?
Yeah, we
tell us.
We did an episode about the Banshee, and so I did the research part because Feliz actually had somebody told me like firsthand account of somebody who encountered the Banshee in Ireland.
It's a friend of mine. So his parents are Irish, and he's Irish, obviously. But then when he was young, they moved to Canada, and he grew up in Canada. But then he would always spend a lot of time in Ireland. And so one time when I think he was about 19 or 20, he and his cousin were in the country at the pub. And so they wanted to like sneak some Guinnesses. And so they took a 6-pack of Guinness, and they were out sitting along this stone wall, kind of like by a field or whatever. And he said that they both heard wailing. So they heard it here, and then they heard it back here, and then all the way over here. Da, da, da. And it was so loud and terrifying that they ran into the pub, and they were like catching their breath. And then, as you know, the Banshee is a harbinger of death, right? So then the phone rings at the pub, and it was someone from their family. Oh, so-and-so has just died in a car accident.
Oh my God.
Isn't that wild?
I have chills. Again, this is like the 7th time I've heard it. I still have chills.
The crazy thing too is our friend is very much a straight shooter. Like he's very by the book. He's not a woo-woo kind of person. He kind of puts up with us, but he's just not like that.
So sweet.
He's like an on-time person, very punctual. He's just a certain way, and he swears that really happened.
Mm-hmm. He told me
I
it scared
believe him
so incredibly much that he remembers like every detail of it, however many years, like many years later, like decades later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I told a Banshee story. It was called The Banshee's Warning, Max, I think. It was about a man who kept hearing the Banshees call, and he was like a doctor and this stuff. But in that story, we found out that families have Banshees. It's not like you go to Ireland, all of a sudden you're hearing a Banshee. It's that, you are in your homeland, and your specific family has a Banshee that only appears to your family members. And I love the detail that he got there, and his Banshee was like, oh, you're back? I was like, no, wait.
Nope, not me.
Oh my God. I'm going back to Canada.
Yeah, in my research about the Banshees, it's something about like there are certain families who start with like an O something, and what was the other one? There was like 2 types of last names that are particularly associated with the Banshee. And then the other thing though that they said is if people are really like musically inclined, that they can sometimes hear a Banshee also.
That has actually come up in a couple of Irish crypt. I'm going to tell you guys one about another type of Irish folkloric creature who also only goes after like artists and musicians and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Feliz.
Yeah, I think that the Irish are just like, hey, are you playing music? Are you sure? I know that's like, we like that, but also, are you sure?
Yeah, I really like the idea that, like, you know how a lot of stories are supposed to be cautionary tales where it's like, don't go near the water because you'll get got by a water horse or something like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea that those are cautionary tales to be like, don't go to art school.
I should have known.
If you want money, don't do it.
I don't follow it. Yeah, I didn't follow that warning. And you know what? I could have used a Dullahan or a Banshee.
Yeah.
Somebody to scare me straight. All right. Max,
Janey.
I love a good Dullahan story.
Yeah.
That was good.
I like a good headless guy. do we want to take a quick break and then come back for my story?
Yeah,
Sure.
that sounds great.
Okay, guys, we will be right back after this pleasant little jingle. Okay, Max, Andi, and Feliz. Today I'm going to be giving you a story from one of my favorite books, and this is a huge favorite on the podcast anyway. It's called Fearsome Fairies, Haunting Tales of the Fae.
Ooh.
Awesome.
It is
Beautiful.
a phenomenal book. It's filled with like mostly Victorian era ghost stories and fae stories. Most of them obviously are British and around like the UK and Ireland and Scotland and places like that, because that's where most of the very scary fae are.
I love the Fae.
You need that book for
I
your
know.
episode.
I do.
This is a great one. I'll give you the link. We've told some truly horrifying stories from this book. So this story is called The Case of the Yenan Shi. And apologies for my pronunciations. I'm going to try so hard to not do as much Gaelic as possible. But, you know, I phonetically put everything down. This is The Case of the Yenan Shi. It is by Marjorie Lawrence. It was written in 1945. And this is from a series that she wrote. It's called Number 7 Queer Street. And it's about an occult detective named Dr. Miles Pennoyer. And he tells his like craziest occult cases to his assistant, whose name is Jerome Latimer. And like the concept of these books is just like, you know, I'm writing down what my boss told me. So this is going to go into a very popular supernatural creature from Ireland, who Max and I have talked a lot about. It's a little long, and I apologize. I'm going to go as fast as possible. But I was looking up things for this particular episode, and this one just kept coming back to me because, one, you guys might not know this, Feliz and Andi are both teachers, and I'm a teacher. What grades do you guys teach?
I teach first grade.
And I do performing arts for K through 5.
I love it. And I'm a specialist teacher as well. I'm a K through 5 art teacher. Yeah.
Art teacher, yes.
So we have 3 teachers and we have 4 spooky story lovers. So I really thought that this one was going to be something that we all could kind of have a lot to say about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through it as quickly as I can, but, you know, interrupt as you will. Dr. Miles Pennoyer was not an ordinary doctor. He was a gifted psychic who, at the time of this story, was kind of at the beginning of his career. He had already had a couple of successful cases, so that meant that like more and more people were calling him like something weird is going on, or, you know, my wife is acting a little strange, and he gets there and he's like, oh no, she's possessed, or like an alien, and he helps like exorcise them or find out what those aliens are doing. So like, you know, he's kind of living like a normal doctor life in 1945.
Right.
Oh, 1945.
1945, that's what doctors dealt with. Is like, were they still in like, you have a ghost in your liver? No, that's earlier than that. Anyway.
They weren't not like that, I think.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't. They were doing their own thing. So he was still dealing at this time with the toll that these cases took on it. He says that it drained his psychic batteries. That's like how he described it, which
Ooh,
did they
I feel that.
My psychic batteries are pretty drained too.
Sorry, guys. I gotta go home. My psychic battery is totally drained.
They're low. I gotta go recharge those psychic batteries. So he had just finished with one of these exorcism cases. He referred to it as the case of the dumb child, which does not mean what we think it means. But you know what? Sometimes my psychic batteries are also drained for children-related issues. Mm-hmm. So he is like, I just finished with this huge case. It ended with this like really rough exorcism. I'm a little tired. So he had promised himself, I'm going to take a nice long rest in the countryside, like a whole week just to myself, like breathing the nice air and not doing anything. But when he got home, there was a letter waiting for him. And this is what it read. Dear Dr. Pennoyer, I understand that you make a specialty of dealing with cases that baffle the ordinary medical practitioner. My sister, Mrs. Flowerty, with whom I live, has a young son who is giving us both a considerable amount of anxiety, and we should welcome to talk to you about him if you could spare the time to call upon us here, or if you prefer, we'll call you. If you telephone us, we will make our time yours. Yours sincerely, Catherine Cargill. So he reads this and he's like, I should turn this down. Like, I promised myself I was going to have a week, But one, this woman was very polite. So, like, got to give her props. Two, this was about a child. And he had pretty much very early on figured out that children are very vulnerable to supernatural things. He said that their minds and souls are pliant and they're the most vulnerable to other forces. And so as soon as he found out that this is like a child is kind of acting strange, it kind of like piqued his curiosity and made him think like maybe they need somebody. So he met them the very next day at the Browns Hotel. There he found two ladies, the older one about 50, the younger in her early 40s, and they were both sitting in this like beautiful, well-furnished room. The younger sister, Mrs. Flowerty, was described as short and plump and very pleasant and kind. And then he says some mean things about her, and I'm not going to say those because it doesn't have anything to do with the story. All right? Anyway. But she also seemed shy and scared, and she kind of like stuck really close to her older sister and let her do most of the talking. And the older woman, Miss Cargill, was the one who wrote the letter. She was tall and lean, and she kind of dressed like a mean librarian, but she had like a really pleasant smile, and she was very welcoming. So she said, Dr. Pennoyer, we want your help, please. It's as I wrote you, about my nephew, my sister's boy. And Pennoyer was like, okay, well, in the interest of time, tell me what's wrong with him and don't do any more like hemming and hawing. They're like, okay, rude. Fine.
What's the point?
Yeah.
So they kind of glance at each other. And after a moment, they have to say like, we don't know what's wrong with him. We just know that like, there's nothing physically wrong with him. We've brought him to all the doctors. They all say that he's fine, but he's not. There's something really bad about him. And he's like, all right. Like he behaves badly. And they're like, yeah, you could say that. So they said that his name is Patrick and he's 11 years old. And his mother says he's very well grown for his age, but old. And then she kind of stops and she stops talking and then she just kind of lets her sister take over. And he's like, okay. They said that he had been to several schools, which were, some of them were day schools, and then some of them were boarding schools, and then some of them were private tutors, but nothing would stick. After a very short time, the headmasters would send him home and be like, hey, we never want to see him again. And they wouldn't really give explanations as to why they were kicking him out of school. There's no like laws yet, so they can just do this.
They're like, you can't be here.
Yeah, there's also no IEPs. They're just like, no thanks. So they said he was very smart, but he didn't get along well with others. And he made everyone so uncomfortable that no one wanted him around. I was like, again, no laws. So his mother and his aunt, they never got any more explanations other than like, don't bring him back again. And it was very frustrating for them. And they're like, that's obviously going to affect him. That like he keeps getting kicked out of schools for no reason. And then eventually they did get an explanation. They said that somebody said he had an influence they didn't like. And that's all they would tell them.
That's spooky.
And now no school would take him. The last tutor, who had left abruptly, had told them, quote, that wasn't a boy at all. He wasn't staying to handle anything uncanny. And then he was like, I pity you. It's like a real shame that such a horrible kid could be born from such a nice mother. And then he left. And they were like, what did he do to you? Like, tell us.
Aww.
That's pretty harsh.
The mom's like, oh my God.
He thinks I'm nice.
Thank you.
Right.
But also.
So nice, actually. Mrs. Flowerty sobbed and she twisted her hands over her handkerchief because this was her only son. She's like, I love him so much, but there is something really wrong with him. And that's really hard for her to say because, you know, you want to only talk good about your kid, but this kid is struggling. So her sister was like, listen, Mr. Pennoyer, we want you to actually come to our house and not say that you're a doctor. We want you to pretend to be another tutor because we obviously are looking for one. And that way you can kind of observe him without him knowing that he's being observed. And then you can tell us if anything weird happens. And so he was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. He's like, I do have to warn you, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a cure for this. So, you know, I'll do what I can, but I don't know if there's anything to help. And they're like, okay, well, let's see. So the next week, he went to their home in the remote country of a town called Cotswolds. He was picked up by a chauffeur named Hammond, and he was brought to their very pretty brick manor house surrounded by a large rambling garden. These people are very rich. And a pretty little maid opened the door, and the two women greeted him, and Mrs. Cargill, the woman who wrote the letter. She was like, I'll show you to the room. And as she walked up the stairs to lead him to his room, he noticed that she was limping. And she didn't say anything about it, so he didn't mention it. But he was like, I wonder what happened to her. Anyway, just like remember that little nugget.
Okay.
Oh, I was thinking before. Okay.
So Hammond, the chauffeur that picked him up, was not just the chauffeur. He had a bunch of jobs around the house. He was this really nice man in his mid-40s. He had been with this family for like decades. Like he was really attached to them. He traveled everywhere with Miss Cargill. And when he was asked about the young Master Patrick, he suddenly got really quiet and uncomfortable. And he was like, oh, I actually don't spend that much time with him. And the guy was like, okay, but like you've been around since he was born, basically. Like, surely you know anything about him. And he's like, oh, yeah, like when he was little, I guess. Yeah. And he said, all he said was, he's changed a good bit since then. And since we came to live in England, he's mostly out and about on his own concerns, and he doesn't stay in the house very much. Anyway, I gotta go. What's that? The bell? And he like runs out of the room. The guy's like, okay. That evening, Pennoyer spent some time with the sisters in a pretty drawing room, drinking juice because he didn't drink alcohol. And he was just chatting. And eventually he was like, so where's Patrick? I haven't seen him yet. And Miss Cargill is like, oh, he's outside. And he's kind of looking around. He's like, it's kind of dark. And she's like, yeah, he runs wild. He kind of does what he wants to do. We don't really wait for him for dinner. So it's fine. Maybe we could just eat dinner now. So they take him to eat dinner. And then after, yeah, really weird.
This might be a parenting problem. I'm sensing a parenting problem here.
He might need like a schedule.
Yeah, a little structure.
Yeah. And it's important to note, Pennoyer is also like, hey, discipline your kid. Like, I don't know. Maybe he needs a routine. So anyway, so they go to eat dinner. And after dinner, they come back to the drawing room. And they're having a nice conversation. Like, he gets along with these women pretty well. And he brings up Patrick again. And he's like, hey, I'm kind of eager to see him. And now it's getting real late and it's dark. When does he usually come in? And then after a small, uncomfortable silence, Mrs. Flaherty says, he's not really regular in his habits. And he's like, oh, okay.
Sure.
But as she said this, Hammond, who's like serving them drinks, kind of draws his breath in kind of sharply, like next to Pennoyer, and he looks up. And he sees that he's staring at the window. And when he looks at the window, he sees this kid with his face pressed against the window, watching them with like in the darkness. It's just like these beady eyes.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
He says, quote, there was something about that grim, unwinking stare that made me draw my breath in as Hammond had done. And Miss Cargill like hears him kind of gasp, and she turns around and she's like, what are you doing? So she's like, get in here and say hi to Mr. Pennoyer. And so Hammond goes, he opens the window, the boy climbs in through the window, and suddenly it was like all of the like air in the room was sucked out. There was suddenly this like huge tension, and Pennoyer sitting there like, okay. Well, he looks kind of normal to me because this kid is like, he's in shorts, he's got grass stains, his hair's a little messed up, he looks like he's playing in the dirt, like he looks like he's a little sunburned, looks a lot like Andi right now. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Wow.
just had a normal day. And so he's like, okay, hi, and he shakes his hand. And then the boy says, you're my new tutor, aren't you? And he looks at his mom and he gives her this like brilliant smile, and she slips an arm around him and he leans into her affectionately. And Pennoyer's like, why am I here? Like, what the hell? But then the kid keeps talking and he says, you're Mr. Pennoyer, I know. They call me Patrick Flaherty. I hope you don't expect me to know too much. And then he kind of laughs. And Pennoyer's like, well, I guess that depends on whether or not you listen to your old tutors. And the boy's like, no.
Okay.
Nope.
I did it. And then he kind of grins at his mom and he says, I'm what they call a problem child, aren't I, mother? And then she doesn't say anything. And he looks up at her again. He says, don't they, mother?
Oh.
And so, and then he says, this is a little monologue. He says, or not a monologue. This is just a little quote. He says, you see, I never stay at schools, and I don't keep tutors very long. They don't like me, or there's something about me they don't like, and they don't stay. I wonder if you will. And Pennoyer says, I hope I do. And he's like kind of unnerved because he had been ready for like a sullen, sulky child, like with behavior problems who's kind of angry. But this kid, the way that he describes him, he's like, this kid is weirdly old. The woman was right. Like he's talking kind of like an adult, but he's like looking at him from like this little kid body. And the boy cheerfully says, I don't think you will. The betting's all against it in the servants' hall. And at this point, Hanover is like, ugh, who said that? And so at this point, he gets scolded by his aunt for being rude and nosy. And as she like scolds him, the aunt, he looks at her with this like hateful look in his eye, and like his whole demeanor changes, and they have this really weird stare off that he's like, this isn't like a defiant kid, this is like venomous. Like this is so scary. He said, quote, it was as if someone had slipped the boyish mask aside and shown me something on the further side that was not only unboyish, but not quite human. Ooh. And eventually the boy kind of stopped, and he like took himself away from his mom, and he strode to the floor, and he opened a book, and he began scribbling furiously in this book. And the guy was like, oh, all right, do you draw? And he's like, not very good. And he's like, can I see some of your drawings? And he's like, no. And then he like slams it shut and like wraps it up again. He's like, these are, again, this feels normal to me again.
Yeah,
as the art teacher.
I'm like, sounds like a little brat.
Yeah, like,
yeah, right. But at this point, his mom's like, he's very artistic. Like he's good at a lot of art things. And at this point, he stands up again, and he strides to the piano in the room, and he says, quote, I may not have been as great a success in school as some boys, but I can do lots of things that other boys can't. Can't I, mother? And she said in this horrified voice, yes, yes, oh my God, yes. That's a quote from her.
oh. Okay.
And then this little boy started to play the piano, and it was brilliant. He's going into Mozart, he's going into Chopin, he's just like, he's really like railing on these keys. And at first the guy is like, this is kind of nice. All right, like a mini concert. Love this. What a prodigy. But then the music started to change, like gradually. It started to go from like Mozart into like a much darker song, until he was playing this song that was filling this room with what Pennoyer is like. All of a sudden, it was like it was like a haunting melody, and it looks like there's like shadows wandering around the room. He's like, there wasn't, but that was the feeling that you got. All of a sudden, the air was heavy, and he kind of glanced over at his mom, Mrs. Flaherty, and she's wringing her hands, and she's starting to like twitch, and she's like pulling at her handkerchief, and she just looks horrified. And then he starts to shiver, and he's like, why am I shivering? And he starts to think like, I need to get up out of this chair, because he starts to panic, and the music is swelling around him, and he realizes he can't move. Like his limbs aren't working. And with this huge effort, with like his palms are sweating and there's sweat beading, on his forehead, he kind of forces himself to turn his head to look at the child. And as he does, he realizes this kid is grinning at him, like with his face turned away from the keys. And he's like playing this piano with this huge smile on his face. So at this point, his aunt stood up from where she was. She seems fine. She stands up and she slams the lid down, and the kid moves his hands really fast, and he stops playing, and she goes, go to bed. You're tired. And this kid kind of gets up, and he says, and he gets this look on his face like he's going to argue with her. And then after this, another hateful stare down, he kind of stops and he goes, fine. And he walks away, and he doesn't look back. So later on, when Mrs. Flaherty, she goes to bed, Miss Cargill is like, hey, I'll walk you to your room real quick. Just like, I'll have a quick word with you. And she says, listen, that's not the only thing he does. All right. It's not just the weird piano playing. It's not that weird. He can affect people in a dozen different ways. And then she says, he can affect most people. For some reason, he doesn't affect me, and he doesn't affect Hammond, and which is why Hammond has stayed. And so she's like, we don't know why. He doesn't play with the other kids at all, and the entire village is terrified of him because they say he can make people do things, dangerous things. So Pennoyer is like, all right, don't tell me anything more about him. I don't want to know anything about his past. I don't want to know anything that's going to like affect me. All I want to do is I want to spend the next couple days getting to know him and see what I come up with. And then later on, I'll ask you for more details, which I think is like pretty standard for anything like supernatural, right? But even like therapists and stuff, you don't want to get too much biased reporting.
Yeah, preconceived notions.
Yeah. So before he goes to bed that night, he does something that he always does. He draws a protective ring around his bed. And it's a good thing he does, because early on in the night when he's laying there, he, in this like psychic way, he can feel things, right? He feels that something has approached that ring and is like shuffling around the outside of this protective ring, like trying to find a way in. And after a little bit, after a little bit, he feels it back up and leave the room. And so he gets to go to sleep peacefully. And he has a pretty good night's sleep, he says. So then,
Okay,
Terrifying.
that was comfortable. 5 out of 5.
honestly, not bad. So the next day, he gets to meet with his student for the first time. And he realizes, like, yeah, this kid has no interest in algebra or grammar, which is normal. But he's obsessed with certain things that aren't really normal for an 11-year-old boy. Like, he's obsessed with really dark history. He loves murderers and bloodshed and stories of medieval torture, which I think is pretty normal for most kids. But that's just, I guess I was a weirdo.
Just speaking from your own experience.
Yeah, I was really into that when I was little. He was a born actor and mimic. He could imitate the call or cry of any bird or animal. He could recite poetry verbatim for hours. And when he did, it had an oddly hypnotic effect on the listener. He had a strange knowledge of flowers and plants that Pennoyer was like, what little kid has this like encyclopedic of a knowledge? And he seemed to love animals. And he seemed to kind of have a power over animals that he kind of noticed in the next few days, except for one. Can you guys guess what animal he didn't like?
Cat.
Dog.
Oh, I was going to say fox.
Pretty good one. Yeah, I thought it was really, I've never heard of this thing. Dogs didn't like him at all, wouldn't go near him. And every other animal liked him. And so Pennoyer says that dogs have a really good detection system for evil. And that if a dog doesn't like a person, then it's a really good indication that there's something wrong with that person. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, I think that's
like-
accurate.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty accurate. My dog likes everyone. He would let somebody murder me so hard.
That part of him turned off.
Yeah, he doesn't have the detection system. Other than these weird details, though, everything was going fine. He got on pretty well with this kid, right? Like, it was a normal teaching job for him. He's like, I guess I'm just your tutor now.
Like, I really wanted to be on vacation, but I guess I'll be your tutor.
He's like, I have a medical degree, right? Right? But one morning, something weird happened. Molly, that pretty little housemaid that had opened the door, she was outside. So he's walking the grounds, right, Mr. Pennoyer? He's just taking a walk. And he spots Molly. And she's with a man that they call Bert the Gypsy. My apologies. This was written in 1945. So this felt kind of Bert. This felt a little weird to Pennoyer. Because he was like, why would she be hanging out with this man? But you know what? It's not my business. Not my pig, not my farm. So he pretends not to notice, and he kind of goes on his walk, and that's it. But the next morning after that, something horrible happened. Molly, it turns out, had been engaged to a gardener named George, and the wedding date was all set, and she had been very happy about it. But George had suddenly gotten into a horrible fight with Bert, and Bert had stabbed that man over and over again and left him for dead in his cottage and then gone on the run. So this was like the drama of that morning. Wouldn't it be funny if this was not connected to this story? Like, I'm just telling you the gossip.
Right.
So obviously, everyone's a little panicked about this. They're running around. They're talking to the police. They're comforting Molly. But Pennoyer had this, like, hunch. And he kind of looks over at Hammond. And Hammond's staring out the window. And he looks really upset. And so he's like, hey, Hammond, can you tell me what's going on? And at first, he's kind of, like, hesitant. And then he's like, if it helps, I'm not really a tutor. I'm actually a doctor here. And I've heard a lot about Patrick. So, like, it's okay if you tell me what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. And Hammond's like, cool. So this is Patrick's fault. He did this. And he's like, do you mean to tell me an 11-year-old stabbed that man? And he's like, no. He just caused this. And so he kind of ushers him over. He's like, come here. I'm going to show you. And he points outside and he goes, Patrick's walking up now. And again, there are people everywhere. This happened on the grounds and like the cottage on the grounds. And so there's police running in and out. And they watch as Patrick walks up and he has this shit-eating grin on his face. And he's having the time of his life. And he's walking up and he just looks so proud of himself. And he's walking back to the house. And Hammond says, when Molly announced that she was engaged and everyone was so happy for her, Patrick had gotten real weird about it suddenly. And then I started noticing that he was whispering to Molly, like pulling her aside and like whispering to her. And he was telling her things like, hey, have you ever noticed, this is weird, have you ever noticed how handsome Bert the Gypsy is?
Bert the Gypsy.
What a
He's just
cat.
constantly, he's like, have you ever noticed, like, I don't know, how cute he is? And she's like, no. He's like, well, he told me that he thinks you're cute. This is actual things that he's saying. And at first she was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, Bert's over there saying like that you're so pretty and it's a shame you're getting married so young. You haven't experienced any of life yet. And then Molly went off really shortly after this and had an affair with Bert. So,
I mean,
and then here's some tea. Then Molly got pregnant with Bert's child. And her fiance found out and had confronted Bert about this and was like, hey, dude, not cool. And then Bert had stabbed him. And now Molly was ruined and a man was almost dead. George wasn't dead. And this other guy, who was married with children, was on the run. And everyone was like, oh, no. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh, no, what a horrible thing to happen. And Hammond is like, that's that fucking kid. He did it again. And so Pennoyer is like,
you did it again.
yeah, Pennoyer is like, hey, this would not hold up in a court of law.
Right.
Like, gossiping is not a crime. So I don't know. He basically is like, I'm not going to put the blame of this on a child. A man stabs somebody, that's on him 100%. But Hammond was like, you don't understand. This is not the first time this has happened. All right, you're getting into this thinking I'm just telling you that he's gossiping. He's not. He's doing shit. And he does it. Again, this is a pattern for Patrick. He says he has a way of getting under people's skin, making suggestions and watching them ruin their lives. And he gets a lot of joy out of this, and he has for years. He says that people die around this kid, people suffer, and every time it happened, he'd have this like Cheshire cat grin on his face, and he would always be where that suffering was happening, like he had to see it with his own eyes. Like a little serial killer.
Red flags everywhere.
Red flags. So Hammond was like, it's also his fault that Mrs. Cargill walks with that limp. I know you've noticed that limp. That's also his fault. He did that. And he says that one day, Patrick's mom, Mrs. Flaherty, had to go to Ireland. And that's the place where Patrick was born. And so she was like, obviously, I'll bring him with me to work on this like estate. There's some business I need to take care of. And when she said she was going to take him to Ireland, this kid suddenly freaked the hell out. He was like, I'm not going. You can't make me. And he was breaking stuff and crying. And he put up such a fit that eventually she was like, okay, you don't have to go. You can stay here with your aunt. And when he found out he was being left with his aunt, he's like, no, you just don't go. What do you mean? So he's like livid that he has to like stay behind with this aunt. So she leaves and he's being like babysat. At that time, he had a pet, this terrible cat who everybody hated. He's described as a nasty, slinking little ginger beast we all hated, which describes my cat pretty well. The villagers used to whisper that this cat was Patrick's familiar because they were really weirdly connected, and this cat hated everybody except for this kid, and he was always whispering to it. So one night, Miss Cargill was running late to go to a party. She was upstairs with the maids. She's getting ready, and Hammond came in and noticed that Patrick was at the bottom of the stairs, and he's like crouched behind one of the like posts, and he's holding this cat, and he's whispering to it and stroking it, and he keeps looking up at the top of the stairs. And then, as Miss Cargill's coming out of her room, he lets the cat go, and it runs up the stairs, and it perches on a railing, and it waits for her. And Miss Cargill's at the top, and she goes, oh, hi. And she reaches out to pet this cat, and it attacks her. It jumps on her face. It almost rips out her eye. And as it's freaking out, she ends up falling down the stairs, and she breaks her hip, and she slams her head on the bottom of the stairs and just lays there motionless. Like she fully almost died. And Patrick was still sitting there, and he was staring at her and just grinning. And Hammond was like, hey. No, I can't prove he did that, but I'm pretty sure he did that.
Whoa.
Very suspicious.
Yes, and so now she'll never walk the same way again, and they got rid of the cat. So, you know.
Sure.
So again, Miss Pennoyer is like, there's no proof this was because of him. And he's like, okay, but it's a real fucking coincidence, isn't it? And then he tells him one more story. He says, all right, if you don't believe that, then how about the fact that the vicar won't let this kid go to church and won't come to this house? And he's like, okay. And he said after Patrick got kicked out of one of his schools and nobody else would take him, the vicar was like, I have a small group that I teach with my own son there. He can join our small group and we'll do like a small group education. And so they're like, yeah, this might actually be a good fit for him. So he's like there for about a month and everything's going fine. But then one day the vicar's son, who's also like the same age as Patrick, he goes missing. Like they go into his room and he's not there and it's at nighttime. And so the vicar's wife is freaking out. She's like, where did he go? And the vicar is like, okay, well, I don't know. I'll go look for him. I'll go on the grounds. And so he starts walking the grounds at night and he comes to this field and over these like bushes, he catches sight of the sun in this field and he's sitting in the middle of a fairy ring. So there's like a circle of mushrooms all around him. Mm-hmm. And Patrick is standing nearby watching him. His son's sitting there. And he said that his eyes are completely glassed over and he's completely motionless and he's just staring ahead. And Patrick is standing nearby and he's like talking in a really weird way. And as he's like talking and doing these really weird movements, it looks like there are these shadows growing up around him and dancing all around him. And they said, quote, they were dark and lean with funny lights on their head, dancing widdershins. And the vicar, of course, is like, get away from my son. And he jumps over this like hedge and he runs into the fairy ring and he snatches this kid out of it. And as soon as he does, his kid like opens his eyes and he looks like terrified. And he's like, where am I? And Patrick is there like, hey, we were playing. He's like, no, the hell you're not. And then he like dragged him home. And Hammond said that he brought the boy back. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And he started yelling about like the root of all evil and like chanting in Latin. And then he threw him in the house and was like, he's not allowed back here anymore. Keep him away from my kid. And then he never came back. And then a couple weeks later, that guy's office completely burned down. Just his office. And including all of his writings and stuff set ablaze. So Hammond was like, again, can't prove it was Patrick, can we? But it's a lot of weird coincidences is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Pennoyer is like obviously a little more like wary of this kid. And then he realizes a couple nights go by and that weird thing that's been shuffling into his room, like going around that protective circle, it stopped coming in. So he's like, obviously it realized it's never going to get past it and it stopped checking on me. And he realizes this is going to give me a chance to start observing Patrick and what he's up to at night. And so he one day starts noticing, he's like looks outside his window and he notices that Patrick sneaks out of his window at night and walks into the woods and stays out all night in the woods. And so one night he uses the fact that he's gone and he sneaks into the kid's room and he starts going through his stuff. And one of the things he notices is that as much as he said that he hated Ireland, he has all of these books on Ireland in his room, like hidden away and like secretive. And when he opens them up, there's like things about it in Gaelic and you could tell the kid's been studying Gaelic and he has notes and all this stuff. And it's like a really weird, he's like, okay. Was he like just protesting too much? Like, what is this? And then he finds the kid's drawing book. Remember the book that he had been scribbling in. And when he opens it up, some of it is like normal kid drawings, right? There's like some pictures of like his mom or people that he knows, like scribbled stuff. And then he starts finding weird things. Like one of them is a nature scene. It's like it's like a 2-page spread and it's nature scene and it has all these brambly bushes everywhere and there's these 2 big trees in it and there's a stream running nearby. And there's some words written in Gaelic. And in Gaelic, it says, the council room of the Sidhe. And then he has another picture with the words, how beautiful are the Sidhe as they ride the winds. And there's like pictures of figures flying around. And then he sees this picture of this dark figure, this like obviously kind of like weird shadowy man. And there's another caption in Gaelic and it says, the dark one. So he's like, okay, I'm going to put this back. So he puts everything back where he got it from. I think he takes one picture out and he puts it in his pocket. And then he like everything else he puts back exactly as he found it. And he leaves. The next day, he asks Miss Cargill, all right, now I want to know about his past. Where the hell did this kid come from? It's time. And she says, well, his father is dead, as you know. And he's like, actually, I didn't know that. Tell me more. She says, oh, he died in a car crash. They had moved to Killeen, Ireland. He and Mrs. Flaherty, before Patrick was born, they moved to Killeen, Ireland, which is where the dad, his name is Dick Flaherty. He was from... Max tried to get past it so fast. So they'd moved back to his like homeland. He was on this estate and everything was completely fine. They were accepted into society. And Mrs. Flaherty gave birth to this beautiful, sweet baby boy named Patrick. And everybody loved this kid. He was sweet and he was perfect and he had these blonde curls and he was affectionate and he loved his mom. And everyone was like, this kid is so perfect. And as he got to be a toddler, he's still so loving and he's sweet and he's happy and like he's just the sweetest kid in the world. And Mr. Flaherty, as Patrick's getting older, he's having a kind of a hard time because it turns out Mr. Flaherty's not the rich one. All the money comes from his wife, and he starts getting kind of insecure about this, and he starts kind of throwing her money around, trying to like prove he's this big man, and he's kind of like ruining them. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Dick Flaherty. So he decides one day he wants to throw his money around and build a golf course. Boo.
Fuck off.
It's on his land. He owns this big parcel of land, right? And there's like this, like all this like overgrown fields with these thorny bushes and stuff. And he says, I'm going to rip that up and I'm going to turn it into a golf course. And everyone was like, don't do that. That's stupid. Like, no one wants to play golf over here. But all the villagers were like, you really can't do that. Like, please don't touch that land. It's a really bad idea. But he was obsessed with this idea. And he's like, they don't know what they're talking about. And they're really going out of their way to be like, it's a bad idea. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it though. So he rips up this land and he creates his golf course anyway. And a couple of months later, he was driving out on this like perfectly beautiful day. And for no reason anyone could see, his car swerved off the road and ran into a tree and he died. And that was when Mrs. Flaherty was like, I'm coming back to England. I'm going to move in with my sister. So Miss Cargill, she had seen her nephew throughout his life. She would always go and visit. She loved this baby. He loved her. Everything was good. But when she got there at this time, like when her sister and her nephew got to him, he was 5 years old now. And he looked the same, like angelic, had these like chubby little cheeks. But he was different. Somehow, she said, his eyes suddenly looked inhuman and much, much older. And at first, her sister was like, no, you just haven't seen him in a while. And she's like, bitch, I saw him like 3 months ago. What are you talking about? Yeah, eventually, though, she was like, of course I noticed a change. Of course, this is not the same little boy, but like, I don't know what to do. And then she tells her sister, this happened like overnight. Like, you don't understand. Like, he was completely normal and then he wasn't. And she said that the night that it happened, she and her husband had gone out of town to shop together and they had left their baby in the care of, who's like 4. They had left him in the care of a housekeeper and her daughter. And then when they came back, he was like this. And this little boy looked hateful and he screamed and he threw tantrums and the dogs were all afraid of him and he didn't want his mother anywhere near him and he would scratch at her. And then like a couple weeks later, her husband died and Mrs. Flaherty was like, I don't know what to do. Like I'm having kind of a rough time, you know? So Penoyer is listening to this and he says, all this took place before his father's death. And she said, oh, yeah, Aggie told me it was 6 months or so before Dick's death that it happened, just after the completion of the golf course at Killeen. And he's like, I don't love that. So Penoyer says, all right, I know what we have to do next then. With all of this, we have to go to Killeen. We got to take this kid to Ireland.
Road trip.
I said at this point, you guys are probably kind of figuring out what's happening. Yeah. So they announced that they're going to go to Ireland. And Patrick is like, you can't make me go there and I won't. So good luck trying to make me. And Penoyer is like, all right, well, you know what, though? I'm actually surprised that you don't want to go. Like, you're Irish. It's where you're from. He says Flaherty is an Irish name. And at this point, Patrick looks at him and says, my name? What rot is this about my name? It's Irish, but it's not Flaherty. It's and then he stops. He makes his like gagging sound at the table. And then he suddenly stands up and he left the room with these like jerky motions and like stormed out. And so that evening they finished their dinner. They're like, all right, he's going to go have some Patrick time. So they finished their dinner.
Roll in the mud.
Yeah, he's going to go hang out in the woods being jerky. He's sitting out on the veranda with Miss Cargill and they're drinking coffee and watching the sunset. And Patrick walks up and he sits nearby and he has his profile to them. And it's very clear that like Patrick kind of wants to like talk to Penoyer, and Penoyer kind of like gives Miss Cargill a signal, and she stands up and she says, I'm going to go take a walk by the lake while the sun is setting. And she wraps a little shawl around her and she leaves. And so then Mr. Penoyer is like, hey, Patrick, come sit next to me. Come talk to me. I want to talk to you about Ireland. And as he's talking, he's like, I'm looking forward to this trip. It's going to be really fun. And this kid suddenly just started laughing in the middle of him talking. And he says, you think you're awfully clever, don't you, Mr. Penoyer? And Penoyer is like, I don't know how clever I am, but I know that I know a lot more than you do because I'm your tutor. And Patrick says, you don't know what I know. And he kind of stops and he says, that's true, I guess. And then he drops a bombshell. He says, I know you went through my room. He says, you touched all my books. I know it. You did it. He says, quote, do you think I couldn't feel you had handled them the very next time I took them out? And so Penoyer was like, I only did that to help you. Like, I just wanted to kind of see what was going on. And Patrick says, you've no idea what fun I have. What fun it is to pull strings and set people against each other and make them do what they don't want to do. It's going to be so much greater fun when I grow up, when I'm a man. I'm only a little boy now, but you wait. And his evil grin starts like growing and the sun is like almost completely down now. And Penoyer is like, I'm freaked out.
Yeah.
It gets creepy.
Terrifying.
And then he says, I'm going to tell you a secret. Yeah, I'm afraid to go to Ireland because I don't want to lose this funny power that I have. He says his fear is if he goes to Ireland, it might go away. And he says, but at the same time, there's something about Ireland that is calling to him. And he says, I want to go back, but at the same time, I don't because I'm afraid to lose myself, which is a weird thing for a kid to say. And then he says, quote, you'd be glad if I were to lose myself, wouldn't you, Mr. Penoyer? And Penoyer says, I could tell you that better if I know just who you were, Patrick. I don't know that yet. And Patrick's like, well, you better be careful. I haven't done anything to you yet, but when people make me angry, I have a way of getting back at them, like my Aunt Kathy. And then he suddenly stands up and goes like, watch this. Then he runs down into the yard. And he does something kind of weird. He opens his arms out, like in this big, like open gesture, and a bunch of bats fly down to where he is and attach themselves to his sleeves. So he's just wearing like a sleeve full of bats. And then he crosses his arms. So he's just holding a bunch of bats. And Penoyer's watching this like, what the hell is going on? Like, what a weird move, Patrick. And Patrick kind of starts whispering to them. And then he opens his arms and all the bats go flying off into the air. And then Patrick watches them like fly around for a bit. And he turns around, grins at Mr. Penoyer and says, okay, bye. And then he just walks off, ending the conversation. And Penoyer is like, that was one way of ending a conversation. And then all of a sudden he was hit by this awful feeling. And he said this is a feeling that he learned he should never ignore. It's a feeling that something horrible is happening. And so he stood up and he suddenly thought, where's Miss Cargill? And he started yelling for her and he just took off sprinting towards the lake. And he jumped through some hedges and he searched and searched in the darkness until he spotted her just in time. She had passed out and fallen face first into the water. And so he grabbed her and he pulled her out and he got her to spit up all this water she had swallowed and he woke her up. And she said, it was so weird. I was standing here watching the bats fly and suddenly they like attacked me and I must have fallen and maybe I hit my head because the next thing I know, you're pulling me out of a lake. And he was like, cool. We have to go to Ireland. Like, I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
And then he says, this is not necessary for the story, but he says the next morning when Patrick saw her at the breakfast table, he says it was really satisfying to see the look on his face. Like, he was pretty pissed that she was still alive. And he was like, this feels good. This feels like a win. So very soon after this, they took Hammond and a car and they drove the long trek to Flaherty's Manor in Ireland. It was falling apart now. It's overrun with moss and vines. And the two women who take care of it is this housekeeper and her daughter, Kathleen. And they greeted everyone. They give like a short nod to Patrick because they don't want to get anywhere near him. And everyone starts like bringing stuff into the house. And as they're doing that, Penoyer and Patrick are surveying this land. And eventually Penoyer, he's staring and staring. And he's like, what am I looking at? What weird land is this? And he realizes it's the golf course, right? He's like, oh shit, that's that golf course. It's like overgrown now, but I can see where it was mapped out. And he points it out to Patrick and he's like, hey, your dad made that. Do you remember? And he's like, no, I don't remember that, but it's stupid. He's like, okay, I guess that's fair. So days go by with no incident. Like, Patrick's on his best behavior. Pennoyer, he's collecting information about Irish superstitions and folklore, and he's interviewing people. And Miss Cargill one day told him that he's in a land where peasants still believe in evil eyes and spells and witches. She says, you know, it's so weird. While they were there, they would like accuse Dick Flaherty of like doing something to offend the fairies. Isn't that crazy? Like, they said that like fairies caused his death and like the change in Patrick. And Pennoyer's like, they what? And you didn't think to tell me this? He's like, you know, you could have saved me a lot of research. And she's like, it's not real. It's nonsense. And he's like, hey, lady, I'm going to throttle you. What else did they say? And she's like, oh, I don't know. Ask my sister. Like, she was there when they said it. And so, like, they were just mad about the golf course. Like, it didn't matter. And he's like, stupid. So he goes to Miss Flaherty and he's like, what'd they say? And she says, on 2 or 3 occasions, villagers would come up and be like, stop digging. You're ruining everything. Like, you're going to pay the consequences if you keep digging. And her husband was like, I can't hear you over my golf course. And continued to dig. And then, of course, it was completed and nobody would play on it. And even his friends wouldn't come over because they didn't want to hang out with him. So, and then Patrick had been changed. And then Dick, when he saw that Patrick was changed, he took him to like doctor after doctor. And they were all like, your son is fine. He's healthy. Like, don't worry about it. And then he died and they left Ireland. So Pennoyer decided, like, I'm going to walk this golf course. He was walking on it and he realized this was like the hardest walk he'd ever had. He's like tripping over things. There are gopher holes. There are like things that seem like they're just coming out of nowhere. He's almost broke his ankle several times. He walks for 2 hours on the roughest course he's ever been on. And eventually he stopped and he looked around and he realized, I know this place. Why do I know this place? And then he reaches into his pocket to where he had like kept something of Patrick's and he opens it up. It's that like that drawing from his journal. And he realizes this is the place that he had called the council room of the Sidhe. And he's looking at everything and he's like, wow, he kind of nailed it. Like, there's like the brambly bushes. There's these 2 big trees. One is an ash and one is an oak. And they're next to like this stream of running water. And he realizes like, oh shit. Like, listen, I don't know a whole lot about fairies, but I do know that's a bad sign. Like, we are in a sacred place right here. And obviously, a huge part of the thorny brambles had been ripped out for the golf course. And he's like, oh no, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, he's getting a little nervous.
Yeah.
You don't mess with the fae.
Yeah, we're not going to do this. So he comes back to the house and he tells Miss Cargill, he's like, I need to know everything. Who was with Patrick when he changed? And she says, that would be the maids, I guess. So they call in Kathleen, that younger maid, and they're like, tell us about that day that you were watching Patrick. And she suddenly gets really upset and she looks like she's going to run and she's looking around and like won't make eye contact. And they're like, you're not in trouble. We need to know. And eventually she like burst into tears and she says, it's all my fault. I did this to him. I did this and I'm so sorry. And he was like, okay, well, tell me what you did. And she says, that day when Patrick was like 5 years old, her mother was supposed to be the one to look after him. So the Flahertys left and her mother had gotten really sick with like, I think rheumatism. I think she had like a bad back and she was like, I can't chase after a kid. So the care had fallen to 19-year-old Kathleen. And Kathleen loved this baby. So she was like, sure, I'll babysit him. Like, it's fine. And they had been playing. And eventually she took him outside. And as they were playing, she catches sight of a red hat in the distance across the golf course. Now, she had been told she is not allowed to go on that golf course because her mother said that this was where the venturesome Englishman had aroused the enmity of those whose exclusive property it had been as long as local memory could recollect. She was like, he pissed off the real owners of that land and you're not allowed on it anymore.
Ooh.
But that red cap that she had seen belonged to a cute young man that she had a crush on. His name was Danny Ray. And he was out cutting peats on the bog for the market. And she was like, hubba, hubba. Mama want trouble. And so she called out to him and he was like, hey, come over here. And so she took the baby, this 5-year-old, I call him the baby, even though he's not, he's a kindergartner, but she takes this, they're babies. So she takes him and she runs across the golf course and he's like, oh, fun. And they meet Danny and they all start walking and it's a really long walk that they keep going on. And Danny's like having the time of his life, but you know, he's tired out. So eventually they get to this like clearing with these 2 big trees and this little stream. And Patrick is sleepy and she wants to go make out. So she wraps this baby up in her coat and she lays him down next to this little stream. And then she said the last thing she did was she took the tie of her coat and she wrapped it around his waist. And then she tied it to like a root so that he couldn't go like rolling into the stream. Like a little leash.
Sure. Like a little leash.
Yeah. And then she and Danny ran off to make out. And so
as one does.
as one does, you're 19.
You're right.
So she said, I didn't realize how long I had been out. It felt like a short time because, you know, I'm 19 and I'm making out.
Yeah.
I don't like keep saying it like that, but you know, I can't reiterate enough how 19-year-old she was. But she said when she finally like came up for air, it was dark and the stars were out. And she was like, oh my God, where's the baby? Like, what the hell? And so she gets up and she runs over to where he is and he's still there. He's wrapped in his little coat. He's still got the tie and he's still sleeping next to the stream. And she picks him up and she runs back home. And when she gets back, it's like midnight and her mom is like wandering back and forth. She's pacing. She's wringing her hands. This woman is like terrified. And she sees her daughter and she's like, where the hell were you? Like, I was so worried. Mm-hmm. And then her mother goes to take the kid and he pops his head up and looks at her and she just like cries out and she's like, what did you bring back? And then the kid looks over at Kathleen and she said she like dropped him because she was like, oh my God, because it clearly was not Patrick. She says this thing looking out at her had this awful look in its face. They just knew, they could feel it in their bones. She had brought something else back. She said, quote, they had taken their chance while I was away. So Kathleen leaves crying and they're like, okay, well, thank you for telling us. That was actually really helpful because now we know how to help him. And they tell her like, you did a good job. I know that was hard. She leaves crying. And when Kathleen was gone, Penoyer was like, yeah, this isn't Patrick. And he tells what we all know now. Do you guys want to say what you think he is?
He's a changeling.
Changeling.
He's a changeling. So he says, this is a changeling. This was a punishment against Mr. Flaherty for destroying sacred fairy ground. He says, there is a way to get your child back, but it's pretty gruesome. Oof. He says, I'm going to need your help, but it's going to be the hardest thing you ever did. So you need to like know now if you're strong enough to do it. And also we can't tell his mom because she won't let us do it. If she do.
Oh my gosh. This is just between us.
Yeah, it's going to have a real dark turn. So Miss Cargill's like, okay. So they run and they get Hammond. And Hammond's like, yeah, I hate that kid. Let's do it.
I'm in. $1,000,000%.
Let's go.
And they're like, we didn't tell you what was wrong. And he's like, who cares? Like, I don't need
fuck this kid.
Yeah.
Let's fuck him up. So they lay out their plan. They wait until Halloween, because Halloween, they say, is when the borderline between the two worlds grows so slender that one may step across it more easily than at any other time of the year. So the veil is thin. And it's only a couple days away. That night, they slipped a sleeping drug into Patrick's hot chocolate, and then they carried him off to bed. And his mom was like, wow, he was so tired. Oh, I guess I'll go to sleep too. She goes up to sleep and Miss Cargill's like, I'll tuck you in, dear. And then she like makes sure that she's all tucked in. And then she quickly changes her clothes. And she puts galoshes on and a big winter coat. She gets ready to go out on this mission. Meanwhile, after Patrick was like fully knocked out, they all sneak into his room, they dress him in warm clothing, they put slippers on his feet, and then they swaddle him really tightly in a blanket. And then Hammond has fashioned this like strawberry net on his back in order to carry Patrick on his back because he's 11 years old. They're like, there's
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't like carry him like a baby. He's going to be way too heavy. And so, yeah, Hammond carries him on his back, swaddled like a baby. They walk under the moonlight, and the way was even more treacherous than it had been the first time Penoyer made this trip. And even then, it was really hard. It seemed everything was reaching out and grabbing his and Miss Cargill's ankles, almost causing sprains and breaks, and they powered on silently as best they could. Except for Hammond, who had no troubles walking. And they kept thinking, like, it might be because he's carrying this kid. Like, nothing's reaching out and stopping him. Like, he's walking on even ground the whole time. Eventually, they made it to the clearing, and they laid the little boy down. Miss Cargill was in tears, and she's like, we got to get this over with fast, because I'm not going to last, guys. Like, come on. So the men started trying to build a fire, but it was impossible. They would pick up a match or like a petrol-soaked rag or charcoal, and it was like something was like grabbing it out of their hands and throwing it across the clearing. And eventually, he was like, this isn't going to work. I need to make a protection circle around us right now just to be able to light the fire. So he uses something weird I've never heard of. He uses a holy rope or a blessing girdle. I don't know if you guys have ever heard anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I'm going to tell you how to make one in case you need it later.
Oh, okay.
This
Write
is
this down.
a rope. It's made with 12 strands to represent the disciples. It's soaked in holy water. It's knotted into threefold knots to represent the Trinity in 7 places, which represents the holy number. And then it's left overnight underneath the high altar of a church while Mass was said above it. So he takes this holy rope that has all these like steps that was taken, and he laid it in a circle around them, and he weighted it down by split pegs cut from holy wood, which is wood from a tree at a church, to keep evil at bay. As soon as he did this, it worked immediately. They got the fire going within 3 minutes. It's like roaring, like nothing can touch him in there anymore. And then they turned to the little boy. And he's still sleeping. And for a moment, he looked so much like a regular little boy that they were like, oh no. They all get this like really horrified feeling.
Yeah.
And like Penoyer is like shaking. He's like, oh God, what if I'm wrong? Like, this is gonna suck so bad. So he glanced up at the other two and he's like, are you ready? And they're like, yeah. And they look like they're gonna throw up. And so they laid the little boy down with his feet facing the fire and they took off his slippers. And Hammond held his arms down, even though he's still swaddled. Hammond holds his arms down, and Miss Cargill and Penoyer hold each of his ankles down. And that's when they felt it. The air suddenly shifted around them. Everything had gone real quiet. There was no sounds from the night. And then all at once, this like humming started, and it sounded like thousands of people murmuring to each other from like far away. So it's just like kind of growing, like they're getting a little closer each passing second. He followed Miss Cargill's horrified glance because she had looked up and she was just like staring. And he started noticing all these shadows seemed to be gathering on the banks of the stream across from them, like they're watching what they're doing. So at this point, he calls out, people of the hills, I know you are there, and I know that this is your child, born of you, of your own green blood and race, thrust by you out of revenge into the human family to wreak mischief and distress because of a wrong done to you. Now I come to promise you that that wrong shall be righted, if you in turn will right the wrong you have done to this human child, whose body inhabited by your own lies at my mercy here. So he basically is like, hey, you give me back mine and I'll give you back yours. We'll call it even. And there's no answer. The air is still full of that like whispering noise. And so he calls out again and he's like, if you're not going to answer, then I'm going to act. This child has done a lot of harm. And so he needs to be punished. And he kind of waits for a second, and then he steals his heart, and it's beating so hard now, he's like, I'm going to throw up. But he snatches a burning brand out of the fire, and he held it against the sole of this little boy's feet. And immediately all hell broke loose. The little boy starts shrieking in agony and like trying to like thrash about in the blanket. And at the same moment, a furious wind starts swirling around them, and it's knocked the flames like flat against the earth for a second. But they were unharmed inside of this holy rope. And outside, this faint cry of like what sounds like a million voices starts to like rise up around them. And then something weird happened. Now something weird's going to happen. Out of the crowd, one shadow rose up and started to get closer to them. Quote, a shape strangely fluid, uncertain, changing as a shadow thrown on running water changes. It gave the impression of being a tall male figure clad in dark green garments that were just barely visible through the shadowy form. But the face was clear, and it had been drawn in Patrick's sketchbook. This was the dark one. Miss Cargill was like, our Father who art in heaven. Like she just started praying as soon as she could. And like Hanover is like about to pass out, but like holding fast. And Penoyer calls out, Chief of the folk of the hills, I greet you. You know this child? And in his mind, he heard the answer. Miss Cargill doesn't hear the answer. He hears it in his mind. So she sees him talking and then waiting and listening and talking again. And later on, she was like, it was really weird, man. It was a little odd. So the man answered in Gaelic, yes, I know this child. And at that same moment, Patrick started calling out in a voice that wasn't like his own at all. In Gaelic, he said, Mahir, which means my father.
Aw.
Penoyer closed his eyes and he gripped his brand like a weapon and he demanded, who is this child? And all around them came the answer, chanted in these millions of voices. Yenan she, which means the child of the she. And the child screamed and groaned and cried out, Mahir, I sheen, Father, I'm here, Father. And as he's like screaming out, Penoyer like straightened up and he said, "Now you know my power and my purpose, O chief lord of the Sidhe. Take back your son and give us our own, and let there be peace between us now, forever and a day. He who wrought you ill is dead, and the land filched from you shall be returned to you, never to be defiled again. Surely, O king, your vengeance is complete, and your son, prince of the Sidhe, can return to his own." And there was like a sudden silence. All sound and movement ceased, even the wind. And then he heard the shadow say, "Vengeance is dear to the Sidhe." And Penoyer said, "Then let's choose vengeance." And he held the brand closer to his foot. And he said, "This child has done a lot of harm. This body of earth that houses your only son shall go crippled all its days from the burning brand here in my hand. The issue is clear between us, so choose." And all around him, he heard the Sidhe chanting, "Yours is the choice, O chief. Yours is the choice." And there was another pause. And then the faint but clear voice of the figure before him said, "It is enough. Return to me, my son."
Whoa.
So the boy started screaming out an answer. Penoyer says he didn't really know what happened after that because the whole world started to like spin and rock around him, and he flung the brand into the fire. He picked the child up in his arms and he quickly placed him outside of the holy rope, careful not to put his own feet outside. And like a huge wind came and started blowing against him and almost knocked him out of the ring. And Miss Cargill ran forward and grabbed his back and pulled him back in because she's a boss-ass bitch. And there was this whistling roar, and the child suddenly vanished from in front of him.
Whoa.
They watched as in the distance, two figures emerged. The Lord of the Sidhe was on a horse, and there was a small figure riding behind him, clutching his waist. They were both wearing green now, and he watched his little boy reach his arms up and shout it out in joy and triumph. And the Sidhe all started to follow them in this like procession of the Fae. Some were on horseback, some were on foot, and some of them seemed to fly through the air. And when they were gone, the wind died down, and Miss Cargill started crying, and Hammond pulled on Penoyer's coat and said, "Look, look." And that's when they saw Patrick lying asleep just outside of the holy rope, looking exactly as he had before. He wasn't wearing any shoes, and there was nothing on his feet. His feet were completely bare, no brand.
Wow.
Oh.
So they watched as Patrick blinked his little eyes open, and he sat up, and he realized there's these three adults like hovering over him, and he said, "Ooh. Hi." "What's up, guys?"
What's going on?
He said, quote, "What a jolly good place. But what for? And why are we all here?" And then he put his hands out to the fire, and he kind of looks around, and he sees Hammond. He says, "Hello, Hammond. Have you been poaching with that net or what? And what on earth am I doing in pajamas out here with my shoes off?" And then he turned over, and his aunt staring at him in horror. There were tears going down his cheeks. And he's like, "What's wrong? What happened?" And she wiped her eyes, and she says, "I'm crying because you were sick for a long time. You were so sick." And she points at Mr. Penoyer, and she says, "He was taking care of you." And the little boy's like, "I don't remember being sick, but it did feel like I was away for a while, so maybe that's it." And then he reached out and he brushed his aunt's cheeks and he said, "Why on earth are you crying? Please don't cry." And then he started to like hug her and comfort her.
Aww.
So the next day, they bring him back, they put him to bed, and the next day, they wake up Miss Flaherty, and they're like, "You need to be prepared. Your son is cured. That's the good news. Please don't, like, alarm him. Like, we told him he was just sick for a while, so, like, just do that. Yeah, like, we'll just say he's sick. Don't overwhelm him." And that didn't work. She immediately started crying her eyes out, and she hugged him and kissed him everywhere and completely alarmed him anyway, because, this was a huge traumatic ordeal for her. The story ends with Penoyer talking to his assistant because, he tells all his stories to that guy. And he says, "I made sure that they kept their promise to the Fae King. When Mrs. Flaherty was like, 'How could I possibly repay you? Like, I'll pay you anything.' He says, 'Okay, well, first, I want you to sell your manor house in England and I want you to move to Colleen.' He says that now the folk, like the fairy folk, they're going to welcome them. They're like, 'So you will be safest there.' A deal was struck, basically. He says Patrick found a great school where he had no problems whatsoever, and he had lots of friends, and the ladies became well-loved, especially since he had requested in lieu of payment that she draw up a deed gifting that golf course land to the people of Colleen. And he said, give them back their fairy hill, basically. And then he asked her that in the meantime, she opened the land up as open ground so the people could visit whenever they want and wander about, because he knew that these people would take care of that fairy land and they would make sure that it remained like a sacred site. And they did. And then the last lines are, "That's some years ago now, and I'm glad to say that when I last went to visit Colleen House, I saw the 2 trees, the oak and the ash on top of the council room of the Sidhe, were green and strong. And best of all, the fairy thorn is once more growing thickly over the clearing." The end.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yes.
That's
Good
super
story.
spooky.
Changelings are so spooky.
Changelings are scary. Like, there are like Nordic changelings who are not as scary. It's like, I would switch with a troll and they're funny and like they're like kind of naughty, but like mostly it's like a fun story. And Irish changelings are like, no, they're here to get you.
Mm-hmm.
They'll kill
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Don't
Terrifying.
mess with
They don't
them.
mess around.
That poor kid lost 6 years too. Oh, that's a
He
long
did.
time. Over half of his life.
And I'm thinking about his mama,
I'm
who's
thinking
like,
about his education.
oh gosh.
No, yeah, I'm thinking he's a
now.
little behind. He needs to like play some catch up. Summer school for you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so he does mention in this story that to Patrick, he didn't remember any of it. Like, he genuinely didn't. And he was saying that in other cases, people have come back from changeling, like being in the land of the Fae, and remembered their time, and they had horrible lives because they're treated really well in the other side. Like, life is kind of perfect for them there. And the shock of coming back to this world is like they don't belong anywhere and they can't ever have normal lives. So he was like, it was kind of a blessing that this kid's memory was erased, you know, because it can
Yeah.
drive you crazy having that background, which is
Wow.
interesting. A quick note, the yin on she, this is called the case of the yin on she, that is not the right terminology for this, because I was like, I kept trying to type it in, and the yin on she is actually a woman. It's actually a fairy lover who like is evil and lures men in, and she specifically gets artists. She like sucks out their soul. So like, you know, I don't know. That's not what this story is about. What I think she actually meant to write was the Leannabh she, which is a direct translation of fairy child, but Gaelic is hard. So that's the only thing that
Yeah.
I can think, because
Yeah.
that's not a thing.
You've been brushing up on your Gaelic. We can tell.
Yeah, I'm such an expert. I did a quick Googling before I opened this Riverside. All right. So that's it. That's changelings.
That was awesome.
That was good.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. Ladies, great
Thank
story.
Janey, I know you
Yeah.
haven't seen it. Have either of you guys seen The Haunting of Bly Manor?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah?
I haven't either.
What?
Yeah.
Get with it, girls.
It's so good. It reminded me so much of the little boy in that.
Yes.
Mm.
Where he's so terrifying.
So,
Yeah,
Felice, you want to watch Haunting of Bly Manor with me?
Yeah, we'll do it.
We might have
It's gonna be a
to.
real
It's
commitment.
so
like,
good.
it's
It's so
screaming.
good and so scary.
It is
Okay.
so
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Little kids are
Yeah.
scary, man. Like,
Yes.
they really do. They get you.
Meet the kids.
Yeah.
So now what I'm thinking is we take like a 1-second break for the listeners and then come back and we can ask you like a few questions. You guys can tell us a little bit about yourselves. Yeah?
Okay, cool. Sounds
All right.
good.
Okay, guys. We'll be right back after this little ditty. And we're back. Hi, guys. We didn't take a break. So that was a lie. So, Andi and Feliz, I guess my first question that I had for you guys is, how did you guys meet? What's your friendship story?
Okay. Well, we actually got hired at the same school right when we both moved here. And so it was first day of school and we were out in the parking lot and I think we like couldn't figure out how to get in at where we were supposed to be. And so we were like, "Hey, you work here? Oh, I work here too." And Andi said, "My name's Andrea, but my friends call me Andi." And I was like, "Yes, I have a friend."
Oh, I'm a friend.
Yeah. And so we just stuck together since then. And like she said before, she was here for about 3 years and then moved away. And then when she came back, we were like, we've got to do this podcast thing. So, and we've stayed in touch the whole time. But
So,
yeah,
how
had a
many
great time
years
together.
was that?
It's been 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's
That was
amazing.
fantastic.
That's awesome.
And the cool thing too is you said that we're both teachers. She actually taught my kids middle school math when when we were at that job. So,
Yeah. And now her
it's
boys are,
they're
in college. And it's so funny to
Oh,
see them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's so funny. You're like, wow, you could just keep getting older, don't you? It feels like an affront sometimes when you see your old students and they're adults now. You're like, come on.
Oh my gosh. Yes. All the time.
We've actually partied with my oldest son.
Yeah. Sure have.
That's US for you. You know?
Weird.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I love that. What a cool mom.
She is a cool mom.
You know? Yeah.
So if you had an episode of your podcast, because you guys tell each other like scary stories. It's not just ghost stories though, right?
Right,
It's like
you know,
hauntings,
weird.
paranormal, supernatural.
Right. We have
cryptids, UFOs.
Mm-hmm. All kinds.
What is each of it? Do you have like a specific thing that each of you prefer to talk about? Like Max and I do this all the time where like we have certain things that we're like, this is a very Max story or this is a very Janey story. Like we know that like most of the time if you're going to have like a yokai story, it's going to be Max telling it, you know? Do you guys have that with each other? Like what's the
I would say I'll turn it around a little. We both have things that we're like a little nervous to talk about. So Andi is very nervous about aliens and UFOs. And I love that stuff. And I get a little nervous about demon kind of stuff.
Very nervous.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we recently did more consciousness, kind of life after death kind of things. And I think we both really loved that.
Yeah, we've been kind of like dipping our toe into all these strange things. So we did kind of like approaching death, out of body experiences, near death experiences, that kind of thing. Glitches in the Matrix. And then our sort of like February episodes were focused around kind of like love themes, you know?
Yeah.
Spooky romance.
Very
so
cool.
so that's been kind of fun too. But like for me, I mean, I love ghost stories and I love investigating haunted places.
And
But
you've done that. You've
yeah.
done investigations.
Yes. And I love it so much. Like that's all I want to do. But anyway, but I love the stories that I love to tell more are like cryptid ones, like really weird, silly, or
she loves
strange
the funny.
cryptids. Yeah.
She loves like a weird cryptid. I like international like spooky stuff, a little bit more folklore or like scary. You know, we did.
Oh my gosh, that one was
we did one about Korea, like
It
a
was
bunch
so
of
scary.
like scary Korean ghosts and witches
There
and things
is
like that.
some
It was cool.
real horrifying Korean cryptids and folklore creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so
Don't mess
scary.
with them.
It was cool. Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, if you could go anywhere and do a ghost investigation, like a paranormal investigation anywhere in the world, I guess this is more for Andi, but Feliz, jump in if you have a thing. Where would you
Yeah,
go?
go ahead, Andi. I always just go along and do whatever Andi tells me to do.
You're like,
Whatever
I'll
she
go
makes me do. I'm like, okay.
Oh, and she does all kind of weird stuff.
She's like, here, hold this.
That's
I'm like,
me.
"Oh, hold that. Okay.
I think for me, I would like to go to Vlad the Impaler's castle.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to go to
Oh yeah.
You know,
That would
Yeah.
be really cool.
that would be very scary. And we've actually heard some really, really scary stories coming out of there, like just contemporary stories. So that would be a really cool thing for me. But any of the really old castles, I would just love. I think there's so much misery steeped into the stones there that
You're like, I
gotta
really
be,
like the
you know?
suffering.
Yeah.
The suffering.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really cool. But I would, aside from that, I would like to go. I've been to Iceland and they have fae there and they have roads that detour
Yes.
like crazily and stuff like that. And I would like to go there and if it was possible to like investigate the fae in a way, in a respectful way where I wouldn't like, you know,
accidentally be a changeling.
get something terrible happening to me. But
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how you go away with the fairies for a little while.
right? Yeah. Felice is like, all of a sudden I have this really weird co-host.
I'm like,
She's looking at me like she
running a
hates
fairy
me.
ring.
My best friend came back evil.
Weird. So weird.
Oh man. Max has a story about a little boy who goes in a fairy ring and they force feed him cheese until he passes out.
Oh, I mean, I could get down with that. I love cheese.
His name is Klaus the little cheese boy and I'm obsessed with him. This is my favorite If I could have that experience with the Fae, I'd take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be worse for sure. I guess it depends on the cheese.
That's true. What if it's like moldy cheese head from Max's story?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Moldy cheese head
The
strikes
moldy
again.
cream cheese.
Yeah.
Not the moldy cream cheese head. I don't want that.
No. No, thank you.
All right. Well, Max, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah. So if our listeners want to start listening to You Two Scare Me, do you have an episode that you recommend they start with?
Oh, well, I think you should listen to the Banshee episode.
Yeah, since we've been talking about
since
it.
we've been talking about it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good one.
That is a good one.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
can't wait.
I think that's a good one. Also,
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna listen to it
UFOs and
tomorrow.
aliens are really big right now, and we have a Key West UFO episode. I have a friend that's a historian, a military historian, and he's always doing research. And then when he runs into something kind of weird, he sends it my way. And so he sent me all of these documents from the 50s on up, military documents from
Cool.
the Key West area about different kinds of UFOs and UAPs and things like that. So that was a good one too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
And then we have tons of just like traditional spooky
Oh,
ghost
yeah.
stories too, you know.
Yeah. Amazing. Your first episode is about Robbie the doll, and I, am obsessed with that story. I had a
Oh
horrible
my
sleepwalking incident where I brought him up and picked my nephew up out of his crib. Walked
Oh
around
my gosh.
talking about Robbie the doll. Really freaked
Oh
my
my
sister
gosh.
out. That was my experience in Key West. So I was really excited about your Robbie the doll coverage. You did amazing.
Nice. Wow.
Very cool.
I like that you're on a nickname basis with Robert.
Yeah, yeah.
Is he not called Robbie the doll?
Robert.
Classic Robbie.
I'm a little casual. I do feel a little bit like I was possessed by Robert the doll.
Oh my gosh.
So we're chill like that. Yeah. Oh, so good. And you guys are so clean and like crisp in how you have your episodes formulated. Max and I are all over the place. I mean, our episodes can go for 59 minutes or like 5 hours. Like, it
Oh
really
my
does.
Wow.
You can
That's a
you
lot
could
of
be listening
editing.
to us for days. So yeah, you guys have a very tight podcast that's just really fascinating.
Oh, thank
So-
you.
Thank you. That's so kind. Thanks for saying that.
Love it.
Thanks so much. Yay.
If you guys ever want to come back, you are always welcome. Also,
And
sorry,
likewise.
last question. Would you like to be our girlfriends?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, good.
Welcome. All right. If you guys want to find them, I believe your You Two Scare Me podcast on social media you said you're on YouTube now, right?
Yep.
We are.
You Two Scare Me podcast.
On YouTube, Instagram.
On TikTok. On
TikTok.
Instagram, we're You Two Scare Me _podcast, but we'll pop up if you
Yeah.
start searching.
Yeah. We're in
Perfect.
all the places. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to link their podcast below as well. So go check them out. You guys are so much fun. You're welcome back anytime. Anytime
thanks
you
so
want to
much
hear a
for having
spooky
me.
We would love
story,
to have you on ours
please
as
come
well.
back.
Yeah,
Listen.
thanks for having us.
I don't want to like jinx it, but I do think I have somebody told me that would give you nightmares. I do think I have
We
it.
wanna hear it.
Then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Send it to
Max and I had
podcast@gmail.com.
That's what we're gonna do it. Max and I had a mimic, so
Oh,
it
I
was
think
pretty
did you mention
spooky.
that to us? Oh my gosh,
Oh.
it's so mimics are so freaking
That's
scary.
spooky.
Mimics are
Very
scary.
spooky.
And
Yes.
I will also say my sister-in-law's grandmother has a book out about her alien abduction of the family. It's called The Andreasen Affair, and you should read it. It's
Okay. Send me the link.
Felice will read it.
Send me the
thank-
link. Yeah.
I'm like, I got some spooky stuff to say. So yeah, we would love that. We would love to do the crossover.
Awesome.
Yes,
That'll be
awesome.
super fun. Well, thank you so much for having us on
Yes.
your show,
We
ladies.
appreciate your time
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys.
And thanks for the spooky stories.
Yeah.
And yeah.
All right.
appreciate
Well,
you.
stay spooky, friends. I don't know. Do you have a
Okay,
sign off?
you too.
Is it stay spooky, friends? You can use that if you want it. All right. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Well, we said goodbye to our dear new girlfriends. They were so fun.
Yeah, that was great. That was so much fun.
I love them. I can't wait to do their podcast. I want to hear a spooky story. I really want to have nightmares. We really do think you guys should listen to them. So make that happen.
Yeah, they're delightful.
If you would like more of us, you can join our Discord by joining our Patreon at the $3, $4, or $7 level. Join us on Discord and talk to us about your spookiest story. Tell us your super scary, ghost story or paranormal experience, and then we'll tell you if you should email it to Andi and Feliz, which you should. We want to hear it first. You were our friends first. Remember that. So definitely join us on Patreon. You can see pictures. I don't know if we don't really have any pictures from this story. Oh, Max, I did have a picture. Do you want to see Margaret Lawrence's illustrations?
Yeah.
Look what this is her art.
Oh, wow. That's gorgeous.
It's like an Art Nouveau woman inside of a dancing ring of little fairies.
Yeah. Oh, the little fairies are so cute. That's such a good illustration.
Yeah.
I love that.
This is absolutely gorgeous. This is in Fearsome Fairies, and it's a really cool one. And I realized later, I was like, oh my God, that's from Margaret Lawrence. She was just an amazing illustrator on top of everything.
That's so cool.
So yeah, we're going to put up pictures and stuff. We might put up some video clips if we can figure out how to work Riverside, but don't get your hopes up. This is kind of a crack organization.
We're very dumb.
We're kind of dumb, but you know that. You know who's not done? Andi and Feliz. Not quite as dumb as us.
No, much smarter than us. Go listen to that.
A little smarter. You'll like them.
What are you even doing here still?
Also, their episodes are all like 30 minutes long. How do they do that? I'm very fascinated with them. So yeah, definitely join us on everything. See a full list of our sources in the show notes or on our website, sortofthestory.com. Send us an email, sortofthestory@gmail.com. Can I please shout out I don't want to say the full name.
We got a super sweet email from one of our listeners who has been listening for a long time and has been very shy about reaching out, but it made both of our day.
Genuinely, it was the sweetest email, just about like, hey, I finally got the courage to reach out and tell you that I really like your podcast. And if you guys think that we will ever get tired of hearing that, we won't. Like, that's cool to hear.
That is the fuel upon which we run.
Yeah, give us more compliments. And you know how you can give it to us the best way? By leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Help other people find us. Help the algorithm. Help Janey's self-esteem. Help.
Yeah.
Help.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends to leave an Apple review.
Yeah. And, I don't know, scratch it into a bathroom stall. For a good time, listen to Sort of the Story.
Yeah, one of our lovely listeners has started making their own promo for the podcast and just leaving it around. And why aren't you all doing that? Do you love us or not?
That is some solid fandom, and we're here for it. Who is it? Is that Gothic Pirates?
I think that it's either Gothic Pirates or Midnight Mouse.
It's not Midnight Mouse. It's definitely Gothic Pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Gothic Pirates on Discord, and that is that's friendship. That's true friendship. Yes. Oh, we're your girlfriends.
We're extra your girlfriends.
We're extra. We are your fiance. So prepare for that. All right.
We're your serious girlfriends.
We are serious. We're meeting your mom, and we're bringing her cookies. Okay. Well, with that, guys, we love you so much. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you on the flip side. Daddy-o.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky, friends. Damn, we used their tagline. That's all right. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, like, the thing that's on the wall behind you, it's like reddish, pinkish. Yeah. It's over
my
your
feather.
Yes. Oh my gosh. When you sit a particular place, it kind of looks like you have like an elf ear.
Oh yeah, I thought that too.
And I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
I was thinking that too, but my brain didn't process that it wasn't real. I was like, my brain didn't process
that's my elf ear.
Yeah. You're like, oh, she's
cool
part
trick.
elf.
Yeah.
Cool.
Half on my mother's side. That's the part of me that went to art school. Don't worry about it. Yeah, this really does. Oh,
it's so funny, but like several times I'm like, oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's my elf ear. Don't even worry about it.
Perfect. It suits you. It's great.
Yeah, that's just a really old dusty feather, and now genuinely I have no idea where it came from, but I'm pretty sure it's traveled to like 3 different countries with me.
Awesome. Wow, that's cool.
You would think it would be more important to me, but it's just part of it. Part of my life.
Emotional support feather now.
Hell yeah.